Hey guys, today I'm going to be discussing the root of each sign, okay? At the most simplest, easiest level, okay? And I'm also going to be explaining the story of all the signs and kind of how they relate, to the whole entire zodiac cycle, okay? This is basically the foundation of the signs themselves, okay? A lot of the times we want to kind of just jump to the high end, secretive knowledge, but that's basically gonna mean nothing unless we have the foundation fully acknowledged and understood at the deepest core soul level. Okay, so here I have a South Indian style chart, and why did I draw the South Indian specifically? It's because in the South Indian style chart, the signs don't change. Okay, so this box is always going to be Aries, Taurus, Gemini, all the way around into Pisces. Okay, ignore the words and stuff on the outside. Basically, what they just mean is wherever I have just the planet written, that's that planet's sign. Anytime I have an M written, that's that planet's multiple sign. Anytime I have an E written, that's that planet's exaltation sign. And anytime I have a D written, that's that planet's debilitation sign. So just keep that in mind. I'll discuss more on this later. But going on, just kind of understanding the cycle of the signs. One other thing I want to point out before I get started is that we all kind of might know this, but I'm just going to reemphasize this. It goes fire, earth, air, water, okay? 3 times. Fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. That's important. Each fire, earth, air, water is a different cycle, okay? The first set of fire, earth, air, water represent the bottom chakra, okay? The earth chakra. The second fire, earth, air, water represent the one right above that, which is the water chakra. And the last fire, earth, air, water represent the one above that, which is the fire chakra. And those 3 chakras are the 3 chakras of your lower self. After you pass that, you move up to your higher self and you kind of master all of this. Okay? I'll get more into that later in this video also. Now, like I said, each 4, new cycle, and they all relate to each other. So I'm going to get started now. First off, Aries is the start and the end of all of this, okay? So creating new changes. That's what Aries represents at a core level, okay? After you create new changes, you have to gain some sort of stability based off of those changes. And that's what Taurus represents. After you have some sort of stability, we're going to expand on that stability. And that's what Gemini represents through things such as self-efforts, communications, stuff like that. And then after we kind of master, expanding on that stability, kind of learning to get things on our own, then we move on to Cancer, which Cancer is, like I said, the water sign. So it's letting go of all the expectations you had revolving around that expansion. And also a secondary part of it kind of is, they kind of go hand in hand, is as you let go of your expectation expansions, you're more focused on, okay, how can I do stuff less for myself and more about nurturing others, okay? So that's this first cycle. After that, we move on to Leo, which is the sun's own sign, okay? That's basically understanding your own self, okay? Now, there's a lot of debate on what the sun represents in the astrological community, okay? Is it the true soul? Is it the ego? Is it the identity? I'll leave that up to you on what you decide. My personal opinion is that the sun does not represent the true soul at all. The true soul is represented by Jupiter, and sun represents your identity in this birth, okay? But regardless, I think we can all agree that Leo represents kind of getting to know your own self at the root core level, okay? After we understand our own self, okay, and that includes our desires as well, we move on to Virgo, which is basically learning to decipher our wants versus our needs. After we do this, once we understand our wants and needs, then we can go ahead and move on to Libra, which is interaction and enjoying with others, okay? This is going to be a lot more pleasantful, and you'll be able to appreciate it more after the step of Virgo, okay? Then, after we kind of learn how to enjoy with others, interact with others, then we can move on to Scorpio, which is kind of gaining that deep intuition overall, okay? When you interact with others and just do stuff with others in general, you'll notice that you gain a lot of intuition, okay? I don't know if you guys have noticed, but if you guys have ever been in any sort of serious relationship, or some of you guys might even be married, you'll notice through that relationship, you learn a lot about yourself, okay? That's what Scorpio represents in a nutshell. Then, after you gain intuition through Scorpio, we move on to the last section of fire, earth, air, water, okay? Here, Sagittarius, we have gaining knowledge, okay? That's what Sagittarius represents in a nutshell. Now, it's important to understand this is going to be very hard to do without doing this cycle, right? Same with this. This is going to be very hard to do without completing this cycle. In order to gain knowledge, it's not going to mean much unless we have that deep intuitive foundation, right? I don't know if you've ever tried to take someone to temple or any religious place that doesn't want to be there or has absolutely zero spiritual intuitive desire at all. They're not really going to learn much when going to that temple, okay? Especially if it's like a little kid, their intuition might not be as developed. Versus if you take someone who has a very, very, more of an intuitive mindset and you put them in front of, a guru, or you take them to a temple or something like that, they're going to be able to soak up a lot more information and gain a lot more knowledge, okay? So this next cycle is kind of dependent on the completion of this. And this is also dependent on the completion of this, okay? I'm going to get to more of that in a second. After we gain knowledge, then we can go ahead and properly apply discipline, which is represented by Capricorn, okay? Yeah, we can have discipline, but what good is that discipline if it's not being used in the right areas, okay? I'm just giving you examples of how they all kind of connect to each other. Then after Capricorn, we move on to Aquarius, which is more about helping others and also fulfilling your karma with related to others, okay? But that's going to be kind of hard to do if we don't have any discipline established in our life, proper discipline established. And that discipline is going to be hard to do if we don't have that knowledge, okay? And after we help others and complete our karmas, then it's time to move on to Pisces, which is letting go, okay? Now, one thing, and then after that, we move on to, after we let go, of course, a new cycle will always begin, okay? New birth, new whatever. It always keeps going. Just leave moksha out of this right now. I'm just talking about for this lifetime. And now, one thing I want to let you know is that obviously there's fire, earth, air, water, and that happens 3 times, right? 3 separate times. The last set of fire, earth, air, water is all ruled by Jupiter and Saturn, okay? That's one thing I want you to keep in mind. 2, and this is more of kind of a mindset I have personally, okay? I'm not sure if anybody else has this. This was just something I discovered within myself personally. We have chakras, okay? And the bottom 3 chakras are your lower self, okay? So you can kind of look at this as the first 4 signs are represented by your most bottom earth chakra. The next 4 are represented by the one right on top of that, which is the water chakra. And the last 4 is the one right on top of that, which is the fire chakra. And once you master this whole cycle, then you're done with your lower self. You can then move on to your higher self, okay? But like I said, Jupiter and Saturn rule the last 4 signs. So Jupiter and Saturn are the 2 most crucial planets in moving on to your higher self, okay? And for those of you who didn't understand the whole chakras thing, well, you can kind of realize that planets signs like Taurus and Cancer, they all have to do with stuff at like more of a primal level, which is represented by the bottom chakra, okay? Cancer, it's kind of nurturing that motherly attitude. Taurus, it kind of has to do with food and necessities, like land and stuff like that. Okay, this is all kind of at the primal level. which is what the earth chakra represents. Then the next four are kind of represented by that water chakra. Okay, so this kind of all has to do with you could say like enjoyment, or also ego fulfillment, stuff like that, right? Stuff that Leo represents, Libra represents. Okay, we have that. Then we move on to the fire chakra, which this kind of is represented by fire, kind of represents getting things done. Okay, so now we need to finally do the stuff. We need to gain the knowledge, apply the discipline, help others, and let go. We need to kind of make it happen. We need to kind of burn off the karmas to get out of your lower self to move on to your higher self. Okay, so I hope this kind of gave a good explanation, hopefully, of what the signs are kind of like at a simple, most core level, and how all the signs relate to each other at a simple, most core level. Okay, you want to understand how each of them kind of connect to each other and fulfill the whole story. Okay, you don't want to just memorize traits like, oh, Libra equals this, this, and this, right? You don't want to do that. You want to look at the whole story. Okay, and you want to take more of a deep spiritual analysis at all the whole sign system at a whole, not just memorize attributes about each one individually. Okay, now here, like I said, I wrote, like, for example, the planet that the sign is owned by, and whether it gets exalted, or what planet gets exalted there, and what planet gets debilitated there. You can use this also because as you kind of gain your understanding of planets also, once you master who the planets are truly at a soul level, right? Because planets are just parts of ourselves at the end of the day. Once you kind of connect, okay, why does, for example, Moon get debilitated in Scorpio? Or why does Venus get exalted in Pisces? Why is Gemini not Mercury's Mutrikon sign or exaltation sign? Why is it Virgo? Why is, Libra Venus's Mutrikon sign and not Taurus? Okay, once you kind of connect that and kind of understand why the planets behave the way they do in certain signs, then you're really starting to understand the system properly. Okay, because the two most important aspects of astrology are the planets at a core level and the signs at a core level. Okay, and if you understand how especially they work hand in hand together, then you're on the right track. Okay, because if you understand exactly, for example, how Jupiter behaves in Scorpio, that should give you an indication that, okay, you understand, Scorpio at a core level, and you understand Jupiter at a core level, okay? And if you understand how all the planets do in all the signs, I would say your foundation is on the right track, okay? The next step above that is understanding, okay, how do certain combinations of planets behave in certain signs, okay? So how does Mercury and Venus behave together in Cancer, for example? That would be one, right? Just throw yourself hypothetical situations and kind of don't try to memorize. I would encourage you not to look on the internet or YouTube for answers, Sit within maybe for a little while and understand the energies of, let's just say, for example, Venus, understand Mercury, understand Cancer, understand how Venus goes in Cancer, understand at a core level, try to understand how Mercury goes in Cancer, then try to understand how Venus and Mercury behave together, and then lastly, try to kind of acknowledge, okay, how are Venus and Mercury going to behave in Cancer, okay? And kind of just do that for a lot of these, okay? And one other thing I wanted to mention really quickly, exaltation versus own sign or Mutrikon, okay? So own sign or Mutrikon is kind of what the planet really wants to do or thinks it needs to do or thinks it wants to do, okay? And the exaltation sign is like the true soul goal of that planet. I hope that made sense. So, for example, Venus, let's just say Venus, for example, okay? Venus, it kind of thinks it wants to enjoy the stability and luxuries provided by Taurus. It really thinks it wants to, it almost thinks it needs to, just enjoy its interactions with others. But at the end of the day, at a soul level, what needs to happen is the Venus, its energies itself, just need to learn to let go and accept all the material stuff that comes, okay? I'll give another example too. Jupiter. So Jupiter, it thinks it wants to let go, right? But you have to really analyze. To do this, you have to know who the planets are at a soul level, okay? But Jupiter, it thinks it wants to let go. It really thinks it wants, it almost thinks it needs to kind of just gain knowledge here. But what it actually needs to do is what Cancer does, okay? Which is basically just nurturing others, okay? Mercury is the only exception to that because it's Multirkon and its exaltation is in the same sign. So Mercury is pretty easy to figure out. And I'd actually recommend, if you're struggling with this, understand Mercury first, because Mercury, like I said, gets exalted in its own Multirkon sign, okay? But as far as the signs, like I said, I hope this was a good explanation. Like I said, keep in mind which signs each planet's own, and what signs that planet also gets exalted and debilitated in, and the relationship between all the signs, and which planets do well on which signs, friend sign, enemy sign, all that. I'm not going to go too much into detail here, okay? All the little details, they will all get fully understood once you understand the true energies of the signs themselves and the true energies of the planets themselves, okay? All the details will just come to you, okay? But until that happens and you try to just memorize not literally aspects, memorize features of signs and features of planets and stuff like that, there's always going to be lost confusion, okay? Because when you're memorizing, you're using more at a mental level, your brain, not spiritual level consciousness, okay? The spiritual level consciousness is always going to know way more than, the mental level of the brain, okay? So try to avoid using this as much as possible. Use this only as a tool, but not more as a secondary tool, not your primary tool. Your primary tool is the higher consciousness that's provided to you from a soul level, okay? Connect with that. Use that connection to understand the signs of the planets, and then all this will start making sense, okay? So I hope this is a good explanation of the signs. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. And until next time, talk to you guys later. Thank you.